The 8th century BC marked the emergence of a small town which was to become one of the greatest empires in history. The city grew and expanded to become an expansive empire that spanned across much of Europe, Britain, Western Asia, and Northern Africa. To this day, the influence of ancient Rome can be seen in the Romance languages, the Western alphabet and calendar, and the growth of Christianity. This is the story of an empire. The origin of Rome. As the legend goes, Rome was established in 753 BC by Romulus and Remus, the twin sons of Mars, the god of war. A king of nearby Alba Longa attempted to kill them by placing them in a basket and sending them down the Tiber River. However, they were rescued by a she-wolf and eventually defeated the king, founding the city of Rome, which was named after Romulus. Afterwards, a line of kings from Sabine, Latin and Etruscan civilizations succeeded in a non-hereditary fashion. Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, also known as Tarquin the Proud, was the 7th and final king of Rome. Ancient historians depicted him as a cruel and tyrannical ruler, which led to a popular uprising and the overthrow of the monarchy in 509 BC. This established Rome as a republic. The early republic. The power of the monarch was divided into 2 annually elected magistrates called consuls. As well as leading the state, the consuls were also the commanders-in-chief of the Roman army. This election system was established mainly to serve the patricians, who were the descendants of the original senators since the time of Romulus. Thus, politics during this period was mainly based on the long-standing conflict between the patricians and plebeians, the common people. Over time, the plebeians earned some political power through the concessions granted by the patricians, including their own political bodies, the tribunes, which could introduce or reject legislation. In 450 BC, the first Roman law code was inscribed on 12 bronze tablets, known as the 12 Tables, and was put on display in the Roman Forum. This law included topics like legal procedures, civil rights and property rights, and served as the foundation for all subsequent Roman civil law. By 300 BC, genuine power in Rome was located in the Senate, which then only consisted of patrician and wealthy plebeian families. Expansion. In the early Republic, Rome's power and reach expanded immensely. After the Gauls sacked and burned the city in 390 BC, the Romans rebounded under the command of Camillus, eventually ruling the entire Italian peninsula by 264 BC. Rome then went to war with Carthage in the Punic Wars and emerged victorious with control of Sicily, the western Mediterranean, and much of Spain. In the Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BC, the city of Carthage was destroyed, and its inhabitants sold into slavery, making a section of northern Africa a Roman province. Meanwhile, Rome also expanded its influence eastward, defeating King Philip V of Macedonia and turning his kingdom into a Roman province. This military success brought about cultural growth in Rome, as they adopted much of the Greeks' art, philosophy and religion. Latin translations of Greek classics first appeared around 240 BC and marked the emergence of Roman literature. Internal struggles. As the Roman Republic expanded, Rome's political institutions began to fail, creating economic disparities between rich and poor and limiting access to government to a privileged few. Reform movements to address these issues, such as those of Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, were met with opposition that led to their deaths. In 107 BC, Gaius Marius, a commoner who used his military prowess to become consul, became the first of a series of warlords who would rule Rome. He would be challenged by Sulla, who would emerge as the next military dictator. After Sulla would retire, Pompey emerged as the military overlord. Meanwhile, Marcus Tullius Cicero, elected consul in 63 BC, was becoming known for defeating the conspiracy of the patrician Catiline and was gaining a reputation as one of Rome's greatest orators. The rise of Julius Caesar. When Pompey returned to Rome having conquered Syria, he formed an alliance with Marcus Licinius Crassus and Gaius Julius Caesar, known as the First Triumvirate. Caesar had just earned military glory in Spain and received governorship of 3 wealthy provinces in Gaul beginning in 58 BC. When Julia, Caesar's daughter and Pompey's wife, died in 54 BC and Crassus was killed in battle, the alliance was broken. Pompey then became sole consul in 53 BC. Caesar's increasing wealth and fame posed a threat to Pompey, who then joined forces with the Senate to undermine him. In 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon, triggering a civil war that he won, becoming dictator of Rome for life in 45 BC. Caesar to Augustus. In the year 44 BC, Julius Caesar was killed on the Ides of March, March 15. Led by Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius, a group of his enemies were responsible for the murder. Consul Mark Antony, Caesar's great-nephew Octavian, and ex-consul Lepidus formed the second triumvirate to defeat Brutus and Cassius. Octavian took the lead of the western provinces, Antony the east, and Lepidus in Africa. However, tensions arose between the triumvirs and soon dissolved. In 31 BC, Octavian triumphed over Antony and Cleopatra of Egypt in the Battle of Actium. After the crushing defeat, Antony and Cleopatra both committed suicide. By 29 BC, Octavian was the sole leader of Rome and all its provinces. To avoid a similar fate as Caesar, he pretended to restore the political institutions of the Roman Republic while keeping all real power to himself. Octavian assumed the title of Augustus in 27 BC, becoming the first emperor of Rome. Before we move on, subscribe and ring the bell so you will always be notified of our great videos. The Era of Emperors. After a century of discord and corruption, Augustus restored morale in Rome and ushered in the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of peace and prosperity. His rule granted Roman literature, art, architecture and religion to flourish, and the Senate elevated Augustus to the status of a god after his death, beginning the tradition of deification for popular emperors. Augustus' dynasty included Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. Nero's excesses drained the Roman treasury, leading to his downfall and eventual suicide. 4 emperors then took the throne in the tumultuous year after Nero's death, and Vespasian and his successors, Titus and Domitian, attempted to restore Senate authority and promote public welfare. Titus earned the people's devotion with his handling of recovery efforts after the eruption of Vesuvius. After him, the reign of Nerva began a new golden age of Roman history. This would continue with the 4 emperors succeeding him, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus and Marcus Pius. Decline and collapse. The rule of Commodus, 180 to 192, brought the golden age of the Roman emperors to a close. His death led to a period of civil war, which was eventually won by Lucius Septimius Severus, 193 to 211. The 3rd century saw near-constant conflict, with 22 emperors coming to the throne, many of whom met a violent end. Rome was also threatened by outside forces, such as Germans and Parthians, and the Goths' raids over the Aegean Sea. Diocletian, 284 to 305, briefly managed to restore peace and prosperity, but this came at the cost of the empire's unity. He instituted the Tetrarchy, under which he shared the title of Augustus, Emperor, with Maximian. 2 generals, Galerius and Constantius, acted as their successors. Diocletian and Galerius ruled the Eastern Roman Empire, while Maximian and Constantius held power in the West. However, the system fell apart after Diocletian and Maximian retired. Constantine, the son of Constantius, emerged as sole emperor and reunified Rome in 324. He moved the capital to Byzantium and renamed it Constantinople. At the Council of Nicaea, he issued the Edict of Milan and made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire. After Constantine, the empire would split again. The empire would be attacked by several Germanic tribes and finally collapse in September of 476 AD. However, the eastern part of the Roman Empire would continue for another 1,000 years.